Finally a chance to dry up, with most places seeing a dry end to Saturday. Clear spells then for central and southern parts, as well as the east overnight. Under those clear skies and with light winds, once again temperatures will fall away. However, during the second part of the night, the breeze will pick up and the cloud will start to arrive in the southwest, so milder to start Sunday here. Elsewhere, a bright but chilly start once again through the Midlands, eastern England, eastern Scotland as well, low single figures in places. Now we keep the bright skies in the east and for parts of Scotland throughout Sunday. Some high cloud turning the sunshine hazy, but for Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, through the morning and early afternoon, it will turn increasingly windy and wet. Risk of 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts in the far southwest and risk of further rain in many places.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
There's a huge financial and mental strain for parents, but we have this system now where it talks about they bringing a family member to help, but I don't think that's happening a lot of the time. I think people are having to be off work, look after their child, and often, sorry to say, but their school always calls the mum, and then you have this situation where you have nobody to look after your child. People's grandparents don't seem to want to do it so much, and often family members aren't just down the road. So what we have is no village. And I think it's really important when you have a child that you need that village.
Are children getting more sicker than they used to be? Or is it just that we take the odd sniffle a bit more seriously now since 2020?
Yes, I do think the odd sniffle can be. I know in my school they say 3 days away, you know, the slightest little thing, and it's like...
If you have a cold?
Yeah, no, please, go in, yeah. And
3 days off if you have a cold for a child, and we wonder why all these parents aren't at work. I think some of these figures about people who could be working and aren't working, they're not necessarily on benefits, but some of them will be people who, during the pandemic, particularly parents, decided to get a different work-life balance. They quite liked being at home, and they realised the children are benefiting from it. Do you think those people are in these statistics, Annette?
Of people staying at home with not working.
Who decided to not go back to work of working age?
Yes, I think a lot of people don't want to go into an office anymore either. They've had that little bit of freedom and they're like, I'm not going in. And I know employers are trying to get them to go in, but they just want to be at home. They want to be near their children if their children are sick, whether that's the mum or the dad. And also a lot of people don't live near their office or wherever. They don't want to commute. Train fares have gone up, so they say, well, why should I pay? So you have this whole knock-on effect throughout the economy.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, hope you're well. I'm Ben Leo alongside Tatiana Sanchez, and this is Saturday Morning Live.
It's great to have your company again this morning, and we have an action-packed show for you. We'll be bringing you the breaking news that the Israeli Defense Force claims to have killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah.
And elsewhere, Boris Johnson has revealed he planned to invade the Netherlands. Yes, that's right, in a bid to secure COVID-19 vaccines, and also opening up about Partygate. He insists, I saw no cake, I ate no blooming cake. We'll have plenty more from the former Prime Minister's new book very shortly.
Also this morning, Brianna Jai's courageous mother has forged an extraordinary friendship with the mother of the girl who savagely murdered her last year. Remarkably, Esther Jai refuses to be broken by grief, instead using the unspeakable tragedy as a force for good. And it's almost 100 years since the first British jingle. Well, they've come a long way since then. We've had the likes of Go Compare, I'm loving it. Maybe it's Maybelline. I had to, I couldn't help it.
Well done.
We'll be joined by sound pioneer Michael Boomendil, who's created some of these infamous jingles.
Yes, Tatiana, 10 out of 10. There was no way I was reading that segment. All down to you. Good effort. What's your favourite from there? McDonald's, Maybelline?
I have to be honest. Obviously, everyone loves the McDonald's. Other brands are available, guys. But Maybelline, the advert, made me buy their concealer. And I stuck to that concealer for years.
You're a sucker for marketing.
Yeah, I guess so.
Me too, me too. Also in the show, not sure if you've seen this, but on Monday night, Philip Schofield of formerly ITV This Morning fame, he makes his big comeback, and it's revealed that he has a swipe at his old presenting partner, Holly Willoughby, accusing her of throwing him under the bus amid his scandal at the network. And he also talks about his ambitions for a future back on television. Tatiana, do you reckon he deserves another chance in TV?
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I think we'll have to ask the viewers on that one. I mean, he's got nothing to lose, you could say. Right?
GBNews.com/you'll say. What do you think about that? Packed show coming up, but before we do anything else, Lewis Mackenzie has your news headlines.
Thank you very much, guys. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. The Israeli military say they have killed the commander of Hezbollah in strikes on southern Lebanon last night. In a tweet, the IDF claimed that Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorize the world, implying he was killed in those strikes. These are live pictures that we are showing you right now of where that missile attack happened last night. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that 6 people have been killed and 91 were wounded in the attack in central Beirut. Soldiers and aid workers are currently taking part in the rescue operation looking for survivors and victims in the rubble. Barristers representing alleged victims of Mohammed al-Fayed say that they are now 60 survivors and they have credible evidence of abuse at Fulham Football Club. The former Harrods and Fulham FC owner is accused of multiple sexual assaults after a BBC investigation was published last week. One of the alleged victims spoke exclusively to Patrick Christie's on GB News last night.
He had this look in his eyes, and I'll never forget it. It was like a monstrous, I'm going to get what I want from you. I don't care how you feel. And I do think because it was in a public place, so to speak, he would have gone further had he could. I think he was worried somebody might come in or I might have started screaming or something like that. So he made his exit pretty quickly. And I think he would have definitely raped me if he'd had half the chance, 100%.
Well, the King has led tributes for national treasure Dame Maggie Smith after she passed away yesterday at the age of 89. In a statement, the King praised her warmth and wit, while the Prime Minister remarked she was beloved by so many for her great talent. Colleagues and fans from across the world have taken to social media to share their own tributes. At least 43 people have been killed in Hurricane Helene as it makes its way across the southeast of the United States, leaving millions without power. Emergency crews are racing to rescue people trapped in flooded homes after the Category 4 hurricane struck the coast of Florida last night. Just Stop Oil have targeted Van Gogh's sunflower paintings again. 3 climate activists targeted the artworks just an hour or two after more activists were jailed for a similar protest back in 2022. The National Gallery says the 2 paintings targeted yesterday were removed for examination and were found not to have any damage. And it's been revealed that Boris Johnson considered raiding a Dutch warehouse over a vaccination row with the EU. At the time, the AstraZeneca vaccine was at the heart of the cross-channel row, with the former Prime Minister claiming the EU was slowing down the pace of the rollout in the UK. According to an extract from his memoir, Mr Johnson convened a meeting of senior military officials back in March of 2021 to discuss the plans, which even he admitted were, quote, nuts. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning. Some breaking news in the last 30 minutes or so in the Middle East, the Israeli Defense Force claims to have killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah.
It follows Israel's targeting of Beirut overnight with a series of attacks claiming to have struck the central headquarters of Hezbollah.
Israel claims that Nasrallah was the intended target, and initially there were reports that he was fine and had survived.
However, after several hours of confusion, his death was confirmed by Israel.
And a tweet from the IDF reads, Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world. And joining us now is Defence Editor at the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. Good morning, Robert. Thanks for joining us. Excuse me if I'm being naive on this front, but what does it actually mean when the leader of a military group or a terrorist group dies? Does it mean that group is nullified, I guess, or can they continue operations? How significant is the death of a leader of Nasrallah's type?
It's very significant. It's more than symbolic, and the main sponsors and allies of Hezbollah, namely Iran, are taking it very seriously indeed, because the supreme leader there, Ayatollah Khamenei, has been holding special emergency meetings. But the circumstances of the attack, it was a big strike which took down 6 apartment blocks. They knew that the Hezbollah headquarters was there. They were pretty sure, I'm talking about Israeli intelligence, and it's signal intelligence that really counts here, that they knew he was there, but he was there also for a specific purpose, meeting southern commanders. And this is why I think, from what the army has been saying, why they decided to do it, because they are very worried about the medium-range missiles, which can travel up to 200 kilometers, the new sophisticated 2 brands of Chinese missiles and an Iranian category, recently supplied to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, and they were about to use them. And that's why there was a meeting of commanders, apparently, meeting the main leader, political and spiritual leader of Hezbollah, Mr. Nasrallah, and they decided to strike. It was obviously very much the kind of thing you would have seen in the war room, the action room. You may remember at the time of those pictures of Obama when they decided to strike to take out Osama bin Laden, because Netanyahu gave the go signal only less than an hour or so after he'd been speaking at the UN. And the go signal was given from a secure room, either in a hotel or in the Israeli consulate or mission in and around New York.
And Robert, this of course comes just hours after the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave quite an emphatic speech, an expressive speech at the United Nations General Assembly, in which he said that Israel would vow to get rid of the terror group Hezbollah. So what happens from here? Are we expecting retaliation?
Well, yes, you must indeed expect retaliation, but also from where? Not just southern Lebanon, because there are already alert signals about rockets being fired from there all across the West Bank and in northern Israel. So there'll be a reply from there. What about also has to... Will Iran respond? This is the big question. How, where, and when? And they have got quite a few options, including the Houthis in Yemen, who've been firing missiles, not very effectively, but long-range, sophisticated missiles from the south into Israel. So it looks as if they've got, the Israelis, a multi-fronted challenge from the north, from the east, and from the south.
Yes, and Israel stressed the strike on the Hezbollah leader had been a precise strike. Preliminary figures suggest that at least 6 other people were killed, 91 wounded. Is it the case that Iran is perhaps reluctant to respond, Robert, because they haven't responded over the course of the summer to various other attacks, the elimination of certain Revolutionary Guard figures? And I was hearing some analysis the other day that suggested because they fear Mossad is so deeply embedded in both their countries and in their institutions, and of course we saw the situation with the walkie-talkies and the pagers, they just don't know who to trust. So is it the case that Iran are just so paranoid and so scared of Mossad and Israel's capability that they may continue this theme of not retaliating?
They are retaliating, but they're being very careful, as you rightly say. As to a precision strike, you call it a precision strike when you knock out a huge area of the very densely populated southern suburb of Daraa. It was a big, big bomb attack. Iran has responded, but responded very, very carefully. They've selectively responded to assassinations of leaders, and particularly the Hamas political leader, you may remember, who was a guest of Iran. But they did launch a retaliatory strike of up to 230, 240 missiles and drones on the night of April the 13th. Most of them were thwarted, were stopped, some of them even before they got to Israeli territory, not only with the Iron Dome, Israel's own anti-missile defense system, but with the help of the Americans and indeed the Brits and to some extent the French. Now, that was seen to be a great success for Israel and would have put Iran off. But Iran has a great many missiles and a great many options. And one wonders at what point they will try and test the system again, because there is great concern as to how much the sheer effort that was required to thwart the attack on April the 13th, how many times that kind of effort can be mounted all over again. And by the way, don't think it's just a remote possibility or whatever for this country. The UK is deeply involved because it's got forward troops and they've been helping to protect shipping against the Houthis, of course, and are well prepared and poised to help up to 7,000 or 8,000 British citizens get out of Lebanon. It's very, very fragile. But the main point, though, which I should have stressed, is why is Iran cautious? Yes, you're quite right that they have been penetrated and Israel's signals intelligence is getting there. But they are very wary about an all-out, full-front war, Israel against Iran, because there is an assessment, even in Israel, with the more moderate political class of political advisors, former chiefs of staff, that will end badly. There can be no winner from that. So we are poised at a very, very delicate moment, because does it mean all-out war, as Netanyahu seemed to be declaring, in challenging Iran and the sponsors of Hezbollah when he was at the United Nations, as you rightly say, or will they pull back?
Robert, just in a couple of words, we're running out of time, but is an all-out war between Iran and Israel, is that the start of World War III?
I think there will be a great deal of difficulty because what has to worry Iran's new best friend, as we know, is Putin, because Putin is taking a lot of Iranian equipment, missiles and drones. But the key figure that comes into this, because America hasn't been able to exercise leverage, is going to be China. If China says enough already, then China will get the Eastern world, India, Pakistan, to say no. I don't think it means World War III, but I do think it's one of the most tense moments in global conflict, potential for global conflict since 1945.
Thank you very much. That's the defence editor at the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. Of course, on that breaking news that the leader of the terror group Hezbollah, Nasrallah, has been killed. That's according to the IDF.
Indeed, some cheery news to kick off the show on your Saturday morning. It is a concern, is it? You know, if Robert talks about the all-out war between Iran and Israel, I dread to think what that looks like. Robert says that that's not necessarily the start of World War III, but we wait with bated breath.
Yes.
Anyway, elsewhere this morning, have you seen the serialisation of Boris Johnson's new book doing the rounds in the mail? He's on GB News with Camilla Tominey, I think it's next Sunday, October the 6th, for a big sit-down interview. But the former Prime Minister has revealed that he considered, get this, invading Holland during the COVID pandemic in an extract of his new memoir in the Daily Mail.
The former Prime Minister claims he asked senior armed forces members to devise a plan to liberate 5 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yeah, so Boris reckoned the doses had been, quote, kidnapped by the European Union and stored in a warehouse on the coast of Holland, which was depriving millions of Brits from receiving the jabs. We're joined now on the panel by Matthew Larser and Sandy Bogle. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's a bit lighter this after the the threat of it's extraordinary, this story. So yeah, it seems that we sort of thought at the time there was some sort of vague talk when these 5 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. So it was developed in Britain, but it was made on the continent. So therefore, the big question became is how do you divvy out the doses that had been manufactured? Did Britain get them first because it invented it, as it were, or did the EU get to keep them because they were made in the EU territory? So 5 million were stuck in a warehouse in Leiden, just off the Dutch coast, just near the capital, The Hague. And at the time, there was some kind of, more wild columnists were saying, oh, maybe we should invade. Well, it turns out the Prime Minister, who was himself a wild columnist, who's again now, was saying just that. And apparently he developed a detailed plan. He asked the military. But the great quote in the story for me is when the military chief who we were speaking to said, yes, Prime Minister, we can do it, but we won't go unnoticed. They might see us if we start invading, not least because the streets were empty, because they were on lockdown too. So, you sort of British forces wouldn't be walking through the streets of Leiden unnoticed. It's incredible, isn't it?
I mean, there's lots more in this memoir, but, I mean, Boris is said to... I mean, he's known to be quite a funny writer, isn't he? So how much of what he says do we have to take with a pinch of salt?
I think you're absolutely right, Eddie, and I think we need to take quite a lot of it with a pinch of salt. I think he obviously had the conversation, but whether he seriously contemplated doing it, I think, is another question. But can you just imagine? It could... And, of course, I mean, on a serious level, there's obviously the Netherlands, Rotterdam, which is just down the road, is Europe's biggest port, major trade centre, and we rely on things that pass through that, including things like PPE, which were coming through from the Far East. So, I mean, obviously there would have been repercussions. It was just daft. And I think it's Boris trying to get his story. He's trying to write history first, I think.
Yeah. Sandy, what do you reckon about the other revelation from Boris, that he talking about Partygate, when he was accused of partying in Downing Street during COVID and eating crusty M&S sandwiches, which pretty much brought his government down. He said, I saw no cake, I ate no blooming cake. If this was a party, it was the feeblest event in the history of human festivity. Do you believe him?
Nope.
No?
Really?
I mean, come on. It's plain sight. They were all partying. You can't deny it. And obviously, I sure know a lot of others were doing exactly the same thing. So, yeah,
Do you
he
think
was partying.
To your point, do you think that him saying he didn't think there was anything wrong with it, do you think that possibly can stir up a lot of anger in the public's eyes, who were actually
I was angry.
Not to celebrate things like birthdays?
I was angry myself. I mean, literally, like my grandkids, there's a few birthdays during that period of time, and we couldn't celebrate their parties or anything like that. And other people had, it's lockdown is lockdown, and that was to do with everybody. And he overstepped the mark. They all did.
But Sandy, Boris writes in the Mail. He says, "Here's what actually happened. All you really need to know about this miserable and wildly inflated affair. Over the course of about 2 years of fighting COVID, there were about 15 occasions when officials in Downing Street briefly slackened the tempo of their work and raised a glass to a departing colleague or held a quiz or marked a birthday in the way that all officers do. Most of them then got on with trying to get the country through COVID. At the time, we believed all these events were in accordance with the rules, and I still think they were. I only went to a handful, almost always to make a quick speech of thanks.
Still went.
Even in the brief time I was there, I saw enough to say parties is simply too festive a word for what went on." I mean, can you blame him? I mean, it was that occasion he got fined for during COVID. I think it was Rishi Sunak's birthday, or was it Boris's birthday? He walked into the Cabinet Office, where he has had meetings day in, day out. Matthew Larser, you'll probably agree with this. Meetings day in, day out during COVID. And there was a piece of cake there, which apparently he says he never ate, and he just lifted a glass and said, "Happy birthday, Rishi," and that was about it. And then he walked out, and that's what he got fined for.
Yeah, but I think the issue is, isn't it, that, as you say, people. He says it's what all offices do. Well, that's what all offices do in normal times. Absolutely.
In normal, everyday working times or whatever but not in lockdown.
Exactly.
Like, lockdown is lockdown. We were all locked down. We all are supposed to do what we're supposed to be doing. Not just because who you think you are, you can go and do whatever. And you got caught back to rights. People were videoing and taking pictures and everything like that.
I'm sorry. Lead by example.
Yeah,
exactly. And we certainly do know that he may not have been directly involved, but his staff were bringing wheelie cases of wine down from the co-op and the Strand. I was in that co-op last night. It reminded me.
Come on, seriously.
I think it's the question generally is Boris needs to take responsibility, not just for this,
of course,
but as the rest of the memoir comes out, is he going to actually admit ever that he was wrong? Which is the sign of a good leader.
OK, elsewhere, the allegations against Mohammed Al-Fayed, the former Harrods boss, keep swirling. I think yesterday the solicitors representing victims said that 60 more, or 60 in total, had now come forward. A massive deluge of people saying they were assaulted by Al-Fayed. I think we've got a quick clip. Can we play this?
I just thought, was it what I was wearing? Why did he do that to me? Was it because I looked back at him when he kept staring at me in the restaurant? I was making all these excuses, almost sort of blaming myself for the incident, for the assault. He had this look in his eyes, and I'll never forget it. It was like a monstrous, I'm going to get what I want from you. I don't care how you feel. And I do think because it was in a public place, so to speak, he would have gone further had he could. I think he was worried somebody might come in or I might have started screaming or something like that. So he made his exit pretty quickly. And I think he would have definitely raped me if he'd had half the chance, 100%.
It's rather harrowing, isn't it? We were just hearing from Sarah Savoghi, another one of the alleged victims of Mohammed Al-Fayed. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? And the barristers of those representing the victims say there are lots more to come and it's become a global issue.
Yeah, I do believe he wasn't in it alone. I do believe that a lot more of the people who worked for him were involved too as well. Obviously, they knew who's coming in the doors, who was leaving out them doors. I worked in Harrods for nearly 9.5 years. Back in the day, and that was before he. So he took over. When I worked there, it was amazing. I mean, I enjoyed working there. I worked there for a very long time, and I chose to keep working there because I enjoyed the atmosphere. Everybody was very nice with me. But with this situation here now, with him taking over from then and that, I believe it was started from very as soon as it went in there. I did hear a few things.
I was going to ask you, did any of you?
Yeah, I did hear a few things which went on in there, and I do believe that every single one of them women that has come forward, that has spoken up, and I believe there is more, and they should come forward and speak up because it's supposed to be professional when you're working for a big company like that, especially Harrods too as well. Any company, anywhere, any business that you work for, or you sign up to work for, it should be professional. And nothing like that should be. It's appalling.
Yeah, OK. We're quickly running out of time, unfortunately, Matthew. I was going to get your thoughts on that. But I just couldn't believe yesterday the revelations that Al-Fayed made some of his staff members go through health checks to get tested, amongst other things, for STIs.
There's a lot of people with a lot of questions to answer, aren't there?
I mean, when I heard that, my mind exploded. I mean, getting your victims checked for health before you abuse them, it just absolutely, it blew my mind. Sandy, Matthew, thank you. You'll be back with us very, very shortly, but still to come.
We'll be joined stateside to hear how Starmer's trip went down across the pond.
But next, maybe it's Maybelline. Jingle creator Michael Bomendil will be with us to share why there are some tunes we just can't get out of our head. Back in a tick.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Prince Harry has got in touch with a lot of people surrounding the royals about a possible return, some sort of easing himself back into what goes on in this country, and tries to repair his image This has been reported today in the Daily Mail.
Yeah, the major move is being branded as Operation Bring Harry In from the Cold, as he's allegedly growing dissatisfied with advice from American-based image experts.
Let's now speak to Jack Stooks. Now, Jack is a former gardener, senior gardener, top man at Highgrove there. And did you know Harry, Jack?
Yes, yeah, I did. The Harry I knew was always amazing, really good, lovely to be around. I think everybody wanted to be around him, really. He was the sort of life and soul of the family. What we've got to remember is at the time, we knew a book was coming out. We knew various things might come from that. We knew that there was problems with Meghan's family, and there was a lot going on at the time. I think things have, sort of been brushed aside to an extent. Whether or not the book was a mistake, I mean, he might think it was a mistake. He might not think it was a mistake. What we tend to do is we judge him on just the fact that he wrote the book. What we don't think is, why did he write the book? We don't ask the questions as to there was a reason behind him having to have his story known. And maybe, he needed that. Maybe he felt he just needed people to know his side of the story. Hopefully, that family can forgive. I mean, not forget, but be able to sort of move on in a different way.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right. Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. 10:27. Ben and Tatiana with you on Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News. What do you reckon about catchy jingles? So we've got pick up a penguin.
Huh?
Washing machines live longer with Calgon. Remember that?
I know that one, yeah.
And one from our day, where in the world? PC World.
PC World.
We've also got I'm Loving It. What's that from? I'm Loving It.
McDonald's.
Yeah. And I Feel Like Chicken Tonight. How does that go?
I don't know.
I feel like chicken tonight, like chicken tonight. Is that the one?
I don't know.
And of course, that one. This is your best one.
Oh, this one, you have to do an American accent with it. You have to say, maybe you're worth it. Can you do like a zoom in? I'm joking. Maybe you're worth it. Maybe it's Maybelline. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, well, look, we're talking catchphrases and jingles because, of course, instantly recognisable and sometimes a little annoying in the case of the Go Compare one, perhaps. An iconic advertising jingle can stay in your head all day and sometimes stand the test of time.
It's almost 100 years since the very first jingle, can you believe it? And that was, have you tried Wheaties?
No, not familiar with it.
I don't know, yeah, me either. That hit the UK on Christmas Eve in 1926. And since then, commercial jingles have become part of everyday life, embedding themselves in our minds and brands.
Yeah, indeed. And new research has found that over half of us find it hard to get jingles out of our heads, and a good jingle can have us singing along all day. Sound expert and music designer for some of the world's most renowned companies, Michael Boumendil, joins us now. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
First of all, what is the secret ingredient, the secret recipe for a hit jingle that stands the test of time over the decades?
Well, I have to say that secret 100 years ago is not the secret today, because today all the brands are using music. So the first secret is to stand out, is to make something different, to do something interesting. The other thing I believe is to do something that is true to the brand, that is talking to you. You know, it's not only about the memorability, but it's about telling something about the brand. You know, when I hear you, your voice, your tone of voice says not only who you are, I can recognize your voice, but it says a lot about your mood, your personality. So the other reason why we make successful jingles is because they're catchy, because they're different, but also because they say something to us that is interesting, and finally keeping this link between the brand and the customers.
Michael, tell us about your involvement in the new Maybelline jingle. This makes me, I mean, I haven't heard it, But it makes me a little bit sad because I was an avid Maybelline concealer user for many years. Other brands are available, but the jingle was the main reason why I got bought into it. So why are we changing it?
First, I have to say that I've been listening to you like the last 30 minutes, and I know it's not a lot of good news that we're sharing, and I have a good news for you. You don't have to be sad, because we kept most of the legacy. I mean, you know, Maybelline is an iconic brand, and it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It was like when you maybe heard this jingle for the first time. And you know, it's never a good thing to destroy when you have a fantastic legacy like this. So what we wanted to do is keep something, and you will first, we keep the words, which is exactly what you have in your mind. And we created something that is not linked to the past, but to the present and the future. Maybelline maybe 30 years ago was talking about the beauty of 30 years ago. And there was a kind of sensuality in this approach. Maybelline is not only an American brand. Of course, New York is key, but it's a global brand. It's a brand of today. What is New York today? Today, New York is a blend of so many different influences. We wanted that to be clear in this new jingle. You know, New York is a lot about energy, is a lot about, and Maybelline is about energy. So we wanted to enhance this energy in this reinvented jingle. Confidence, energy, I want to say diversity. And finally, we're projecting the brand in, I hope, maybe in the next 40 years.
Last question, because we're running out of time, but if you were going to create a jingle for UK PLC, for Great Britain, what elements would you take for inspiration? What would be included in your jingle and why?
That's a tricky question, but you're going to be disappointed. There's no recipe, so I will not tell you. In fact, you know, it's just like you go to a hotel and say, I want a new suit, but for what? Every brand has a challenge. Maybe this is understood, maybe this is not understood. What are the competitors doing? What are my customer expecting? And this is from this analysis, the analysis of the environment, that you create the right vocabulary. Maybe the suit that you're having yesterday will work or will not work. But I'm sure that the day you got married, or if you get married, you will not exactly have this shirt. Maybe yes, okay. So you know this. This is not a question I can answer like this. It's a strategic asset, and it's an asset for the success. So you need to understand the environment.
Okay, Michael, thank you so much for joining us this morning with your expertise. Great to have your company. I wanted to ask, we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask how he does it. Has he got a studio in his house? And he
yes,
sort of
course. Well, maybe we should ask the GB viewers what's their favourite jingle.
Yes, gbnews.com/your say. I'm loving it. I feel like chicken tonight. A Mars a day helps you work, rest and play.
Any more that we haven't got?
The Go Compare one.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Car insurance one.
Is the Cornetto one a jingle? Is that just a song?
Oh, yes.
Give me one corner.
It's like
one
operatic, isn't
give it to me.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let us know. Let's move on. What's coming up next, Tatiana?
I think we'll be talking about some bubbly, some Prosecco, won't we?
Getting boozy.
Yeah, we're getting boozy next, so stay with us. And also we'll be heading stateside for the latest in the race for the White House.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a chilly start out there, but at least it's fine and bright for many of us, following all the wet weather that some central and southern parts saw at the end of the week. There will be more rain later this weekend, but for the time being, much of England and Wales bathed in crisp sunshine, and it stays that way throughout much of the day. There will be some cloud arriving into Wales and the southwest, the odd shower later, but the thicker cloud will be reserved for Scotland and Northern Ireland, with more frequent showers, especially for the northwest of Scotland, more persistent rain at times. Feeling relatively cool everywhere, 11 to 15 Celsius, but bright blue skies and lighter winds in the south will be perfectly pleasant. The same can't be said for northern and northwest Scotland, where the spells of showery rain will turn a bit more persistent by the end of the day. More scattered showers for southwest Scotland, mostly dry for southeast Scotland. Northern Ireland, a bit of cloud around, but otherwise largely dry. And for England and Wales, after all that wet weather, finally a chance to dry up, with most places seeing a dry end to Saturday. Clear spells then for central and southern parts, as well as the east overnight. under those clear skies and with light winds, once again, temperatures will fall away. However, during the second part of the night, the breeze will pick up and the cloud will start to arrive in the southwest, so milder to start Sunday here. Elsewhere, a bright but chilly start once again through the Midlands, eastern England, eastern Scotland as well, low single figures in places. Now, we keep the bright skies in the east and for parts of Scotland throughout Sunday. Some high cloud turning the sunshine hazy, but for Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, through the morning and early afternoon, it will turn increasingly windy and wet. Risk of 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts in the far southwest and risk of further rain in many places.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. 10:37, Ben and Tatiana with you on Saturday Morning Live on GB News. Somebody on your say mentioned the fudge. A finger of fudge is just enough. Remember that? I think it's from 1973. I just Googled it and watched it on YouTube a bit before our time.
Any good?
It's quite a catchy tune. Yeah, I'll see if we can get it on telly for you to have a listen. Elsewhere, let's go stateside, shall we? Because the race for the White House is hotting up, to say the least, because Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are both at loggerheads with each other ahead of the November election, with the Democrat nominee apparently slightly nudging it.
Ah, OK. Well, to tell us more, we're delighted they were neck to neck. But now we are joined to tell us more by Nelson Aspen, journalist and author, live from New York. Good morning, or good afternoon, or wherever you are. Well, you're in America, aren't you? But
it's the wee hours here in New York City. And yeah, Ben, you're right. They are neck and neck, but most of those, the advantages in the polls are within the margin of error. So it's anybody's guess at this stage of the game.
Yeah, Nelson, I want to play you a quick clip because Donald Trump met Zelensky yesterday, the president of Ukraine. And, I mean, some people are suggesting that he really sort of enforced his masculinity over Zelensky, not least because he's about double his height. But just look at this clip where Trump is talking about his friendship, or relationship at least, with Vladimir Putin. And Zelensky interrupts him to say, yeah, but we've got a good relationship. And Trump kind of says, yeah, whatever, it takes two to tango. Look at this clip.
We have a very good relationship, and I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
I hope we have more good relations.
We're going to have, I see.
Oh, it's so awkward, isn't it, Nelson?
Well, President Zelensky is in a very difficult position because he doesn't know who the president's going to be. So he has to play both sides very carefully. In the event that Trump wins, in the event that Harris wins, he has to make sure he's friends with both. What I think is interesting is that Trump feels, at least so he claims, that he can have the conflict resolved if he is elected president before he's even sworn into office. He's that confident that he can fix the problem. Similarly, with everything exploding in the Middle East, he claims that that conflict wouldn't even be going on if he had been in office.
I mean, there is a lot of division between the two, and one of the main topics is immigration. So if we're talking about public confidence in both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, I think it's important to not only mention Kamala's latest interview that she's done, which we'd like you to go into a little bit, but also she made her first visit to the border since 2021. Is anyone going to fall, quote unquote, fall for that visit?
Well, she is the so-called border czar, and you're right, she has not made a visit to a border town in almost 3 years. So she did go to a town in Arizona yesterday, and the timing was very interesting because Donald Trump gave a preemptive speech warning people that not to believe anything she has to say about the border because she's been in a position to do something about it for 3.5 years and hasn't. So anything she says would be hollow or empty. Her new favorite word seems to be holistic. So she's talking about a holistic approach to everything. But the border situation is a major issue for most American voters. And the timing may or may not be suspect. That yesterday we had a bombshell report about the numbers. Aside from the millions of people that have poured across the borders, specifically 13,000 plus of those migrants and people that have come across the border illegally are convicted murderers, and almost 16,000 are convicted rapists and sex criminals. So these are the people that are coming across the border, and of course, the Republicans are seizing on those numbers. Nelson, those numbers are crazy. Where are they from? That's from the ICE, the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. So, that's sort of without the ICE pun, that is the tip of the iceberg. We are in trouble, and we need the border fixed. And Kamala Harris claims that Donald Trump has sabotaged their efforts and that he would, quote, rather run on a problem than fix a problem. Well, if they're official government figures, you could probably double or triple them, to be quite honest with you. And I'm guessing those figures aren't doing Kamala Harris any favours at all, as the apparent borders are. Absolutely not. And a lot of people are calling her out yesterday for her visit to the border town in Arizona as being a photo opportunity. So we'll see if it has any traction in the polls. But I don't know. The polls are suspect themselves because it depends. I can't imagine that anybody's undecided at this point. And if they are, it wouldn't be over immigration. Nelson, I reckon, I mean, call me naive, I reckon that sways it. If Trump hones in on those figures and makes the point that it's probably double that, for me, anyway, that is an absolute clincher. I hadn't heard that before, and it's really stunned me to the core, actually. So, yeah, my money now, if I'm going to bet on it, is Donald Trump in the wake of those figures. If your issue is immigration, then that is correct for you. For some people, it might be the economy. We haven't heard anything about climate change in weeks. Nobody seems to be talking about the environment. It's all economy and border at the moment. Yeah.
Well, notwithstanding, if we're going to give a little bit to Kamala Harris and give some balance, if you could say that, there's a trio of Kansas Republicans who have now thrown their support behind Kamala, one of those being a one-time chair of the Senate Labour Committee. Where does that put things in terms of, number one, voter confidence, and number two, the polls?
I'm not sure a lot of everyday American voters are swayed by 3 Republicans from Kansas, a former senator, an insurance commissioner, and a retired judge. We talk about this when Taylor Swift gives an endorsement or George Clooney. That's nice, and it's nice press, and every candidate wants an endorsement. Give me an endorsement, I'll take it. But for the average voter, does it have any sway? I don't think so.
Yeah. All right, Nelson, dusty old Kansas Republicans or stunning immigration figures that show tens of thousands are rapists and murderers. I don't know. Thank you, Nelson, for joining us. Appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.
Well, I tried.
Yeah. Good job.
And still to come, we'll be meeting Prosecco producer Ed Smith, and he'll be here to share why Brits love Italian bubbles so much.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
My next guest is a composer and film director whose musical journey began at the tender age of 4.5 when he started playing the piano. Under the tutelage of luminaries such as Sir George Benjamin and Sir Harrison Birtwistle, he has honed his craft, primarily grounding himself in the classical world. He's written music in sets of composition in the 24 major and minor keys of the chromatic scale, producing an album which is accompanied by 24 videos, and it's called 24. I'm joined now by Fabio D'Andrea. Fabio, great to see you. Tell me a little bit, I'm a layman when it comes to music, tell me a little bit about how a composer chooses a key and what it means to the composer to have chosen the key.
Sure. Well, I think every musical key, and there's 24 of them, major and minor, they have their own feel. So you could play a piece in, say, C major, which is normally regarded as the simple key, it's all the white notes on the piano. But if you play that piece, say, in A-flat major, it's going to have a very different feel. So I decided to create this project, 24 pieces, again, looking back at our traditions and the history of what composers have done in the past, especially in regards to piano music, and explore every key, see if I could bring out the emotion that you feel from that actual key itself.
Were you fonder of some than others? I imagine, for example, you're not so fond of C because it's too straightforward.
Actually, no, I love all of them. And that's the beauty of music. Every key has its own feel. And some keys are associated with different feelings. So, for example, C major has actually been historically associated with victory. It's quite a victorious feel about it. I love D-flat major. That's quite mellow. But every key has its own special feeling. And sometimes something will just sound different in that one key, and it's meant to be in that key. So for me, this has been a whole exploration of that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, our next topic. As a nation, we import the most booze after the USA, apparently. The United Kingdom is a key market for the global wine trade, including the Italian one.
Well, that's a stat, isn't it? The second biggest importer of booze in the world. Never knew that. Well, Italian wine in Britain is worth a whopping £891 million and can be described as a Prosecco phenomenon, apparently. So joining us now to tell us more about why these Italian bubbles are so popular is Ed Smith, the founder of The Emissary, a British-based Prosecco brand. Good morning, Ed.
Morning, guys.
Thank you for coming in. And you've done just as we asked. You come laden with booze and bottles and glasses.
Exactly.
So the definition of Prosecco, Tatiana, you were saying earlier, is sparkling wine that's been made in certain areas of Italy. Which areas?
Exactly. So the Prosecco region is northeast Italy. It's about sort of an hour north of Venice. Foothills of Dolomite Mountains. Very, very beautiful part of Italy. Veneto, exactly. Well done.
Show off.
Yeah. Well, I'm half Italian, so...
well, there we go. OK, you should be teaching me.
No, that's it.
So, yeah, so like Champagne, that has to come from the Champagne region in France. Prosecco has to come from the Prosecco region in Italy. And it's different to Champagne and other sparkling wines, like English sparkling wine, in that geography, like we just mentioned, has to come from that region in Italy. The grapes that are used are different. So Prosecco has to be at least 85% Glera, which is the native grapes of the region. And it's most importantly the method. So Champagne and English sparkling wines use the traditional method, where second fermentation, which produces the bubbles, happens in the bottle. Whereas Prosecco uses what's called the Charmat method. So the second fermentation happens in still vats. It's a much quicker process, and that's why Prosecco is a bit more affordable.
So the Emissary is a British-based Prosecco brand.
Yeah.
So is it made in the UK?
No, made in Italy.
Yeah, that's why you can call it Prosecco.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't call it Prosecco unless it's made in those two regions, and I forget the second region. It's Veneto and...
so the Veneto is the main region, and the second region is next door.
Friuli Venezia.
Exactly. Yeah.
OK, great. So can we get stuck into some of these? That's the most important thing of this morning.
So we have three Proseccos. The reason I started the Emissary, which is what we're tasting today...
so I butchered the pronunciation of that, didn't I?
No, don't worry, easy mistake. The Emissary is fine, but Emissary, I think, is just...
Emissary, OK.
A little bit better. So I've partnered with a family-run third-generation vineyard out in Italy. I started the brand because I just felt there was a lot of Prosecco in the UK, as you mentioned. It's a huge market for Prosecco, but it's just been flooded with really poor quality products.
Yeah.
Brand Prosecco has taken a bit of a hammering just because there's as production goes up, quality often comes down, and they fill it with sugar.
We've got 4 minutes, so
sorry.
I'll
keep talking. And
so what are we tasting first?
So this is our DOC Treviso Extra Brut. So this is 85% Glera blended with a Pinot Grigio grape.
And Ed, is there a proper and posh way of tasting and smelling?
Is that Prosecco etiquette?
Well, no. You just have a little sniff, so you get a bit of the nose and a bit of the aromas.
It reminds me of award dues, award ceremonies.
Absolutely. So technically, we should be drinking out of a slightly bigger glass.
Cheers.
So you get the aromas as you're sipping.
OK. So £891 million, that's the Italian wine market in the UK.
Yeah.
How does that fare to say homegrown sparkling wine? Because the UK is doing very well, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, which is great. And obviously, I'm a big supporter of all the English wine brands that are coming through. And it's great that that's doing well. But Prosecco is a totally different drink to the English sparkling wines. That's much more akin to champagne and to the grapes used and the method used to produce it.
That's delicious. It reminds me of being hungover at a wedding.
That is absolutely delicious.
Well, this is it, Ben. That's because you're drinking bag Prosecco.
Right.
I like to know what kind of notes are in drinks as well. So I'm going to try. It tastes a little bit fruity.
Yeah.
Right?
So the first one it's an extra brut. So it's very light, very dry. It's got some citrusy notes, minerally notes. This is our DOCG Superiore, so it's from the best grapes on the vineyard. It's steepest slopes, and it's blended with a Chardonnay, so it's a little fuller-bodied, very, very fine bubbles. And it's got this DOCG appellation, so it's basically recognised as a guaranteed best grapes in the region.
And what would you say is best to eat with this first Prosecco?
So they all, well, I was going to say they all pair well with sort of shellfish, fish, light appetizers. Not so much with the sort of heavier dishes like steaks and stuff, but the DOCG pairs better with if you are going to drink with heavier foods, you want to drink the DOCG because it's a little fuller bodied.
And you mentioned bad Prosecco is more sort of hangover inducing, I guess. Why is that? What is it?
Well, because if the mass-produced ones are just poor quality wines and they fill it with sugar and sulfites to sort of mask the poor quality of the wine. Ours are much lower sugar. They're all sustainably produced, and they've got 3 generations of wine growing that pour into every bottle, and these guys just put a lot of passion into making the wines.
We have 1 minute left.
Okay.
Should we try this last one? This is the rosé.
This is our rosé, yeah. So this is.
I love a rosé Prosecco.
This is again 85% Glera, but it's blended with a Pinot Noir or Pinot Nero.
This is usually a favourite among the ladies. Cheers.
Exactly. This is a bit of a new thing. Cheers. Rosé Prosecco was only allowed granted production by the Italian authorities in 2001, I think. But this has got sort of red berry fruit.
I think that's my favourite.
I would say the first. They're all delicious, by the way.
Thank you.
Oh, they're stunning. I would say the first and the third are my favourite.
OK, that's good. I mean, it's so weird because whenever I do these sort of tastings, people just have different opinions. You probably like the first one because it's very light and dry.
Yeah.
A lot of people prefer the slight, more complex of the
They are delicious.
second one. But,
Ed, where can people find out more very quickly?
So just head to our website if you want to buy some, or to our Instagram at the MSO Prosecco. But if you want to have a little try on the website.
Great.
Thank you very much.
And I'll nick one of those take home to my wife tonight.
Absolutely. These are for you guys. So
Ed,
you
thank
enjoy.
you for joining us. Thank you very much.
Guys.
Stick with us on Saturday Morning Live. We'll have all the showbiz news next, including Philip Schofield's big TV comeback on Monday. Back in just a tick.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello,
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through today, we'll see some showers in the northwest, sunnier spells elsewhere before turning more unsettled from the west on Sunday. Looking at the bigger picture then, we've got a ridge of higher pressure extending across much of the UK. There is a frontal system across the northwest of Scotland, so here we are going to see some cloudier skies across Scotland with some outbreaks of rain and showers affecting northwestern parts of England and also parts of Northern Ireland as well. But on the whole, further towards the south, across Wales and much of England, a fine day to come with some sunny spells too. We've got lighter winds out there today, but despite that, still temperatures a little bit below average, highs of 11 in the north, up to 15 in the south. Now, as we go through this evening, cloudy conditions remain across much of Scotland, especially western areas, and across parts of Orkney, where we've got further outbreaks of rain. Temperatures will quickly fall away once again tonight. Further across Northern Ireland, again, a few showers remaining, and across northwestern England, coming down into Wales as well. But largely dry further the south you go, with some early evening sunshine as well. Now, as we go through this evening, cloud and rain persisting across parts of Scotland, but elsewhere, a largely fine, dry night to come with some clear spells as well. We've got light winds as well, and that'll help temperatures drop away. So we could still see a touch of frost tonight, but perhaps not quite as low as what we saw in the previous night. Further towards the south, though, we will see the winds increasing. It's going to be a mild start here, but a windy start with outbreaks of rain as the next area of low pressure moves through. So we have got a Met Office wind warning in force for some strong gusty winds of 50, possibly 60 miles per hour across the southwest and into parts of Wales as well. But further towards the east, a drier day with some bright sunny sunshine. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's still...
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained. I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, I'm Ben Leo alongside Tatiana Sanchez, and this is Saturday Morning Live.
Welcome along to the second hour of Saturday Morning Live. We've got an action-packed show for you coming up.
Yes, we'll be bringing you the news that the Israeli Defence Force claims to have killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. That's breaking over the past hour or so.
And Boris Johnson has revealed he planned to invade the Netherlands. Yes, that is correct, in a bid to secure COVID-19 vaccines, that is. And opening up about Partygate as well, he insists, I saw no cake, I ate no blooming cake. We'll have plenty more from the former Prime Minister's new book shortly.
And comedian and beautiful good friend of Tatiana Sanchez, Francine Lewis, will be here to share with us her upcoming book and competition with Simon Cowell to find the next big comedian.
And this Thursday was known as Baby Boom Day, with the most babies in the UK born each year. We'll be joined by mum-to-be and former X Factor contestant and businesswoman Gemma Burke to share her motherhood journey so far.
And I was asking why this week was Baby Boom Week, and a producer off-air said to me, well, because babies who were conceived over New Year and Christmas are being born now. Of course, it's from September, October time.
Oh, so people are trying to have babies more in the festive season?
Well, I'm not sure if they're particularly trying intentionally, but I guess the booze is flowing, everyone's off work, and you never know what happens in households and wherever else.
Certainly no judgment over here.
Yeah, indeed. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/. You'll say, are you a September or October autumnal baby? Have you got plans for any more babies? Let us know. Before anything else this hour, including Philip Schofield's big return on Monday night, he's blamed Holly Willoughby for throwing him under the bus.
Ooh.
Does he have a point?
Possibly. He could have a point.
Diplomatic as always, Tatiana. Yeah, that's coming in the Showbiz section with Steph Tetchy. But first, your news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
All of a sudden, very much looking forward to Christmas. Good morning, it's 11 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie, here in the GB newsroom. Now, the Israeli military say they have killed the commander of Hezbollah in strikes in southern Lebanon. In a tweet, the IDF claimed that Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world, saying he was killed in the strikes. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that at least 6 people have been killed and 91 wounded in attacks on central Beirut. On your screens now are live pictures of where that missile strike happened last night. Soldiers and aid workers are currently taking part in the rescue operations, looking for survivors and the victims in the rubble. And the Reuters news agency are now reporting that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, has been transferred to a secure location in his country with heightened security measures in place. Barristers representing alleged victims of Mohammed al-Fayed say they are now 60 survivors and they have credible evidence of abuse at Fulham Football Club. The former Harrods and Fulham FC owner is accused of multiple sexual assaults after a BBC investigation was published last week. One of the alleged victims spoke exclusively to Patrick Christie's on GB News last night.
He had this look in his eyes, and I'll never forget it. It was like a monstrous, I'm going to get what I want from you. I don't care how you feel. And I do think because it was in a public place, so to speak, he would have gone further had he could. I think he was worried somebody might come in or I might have started screaming or something like that. So he made his exit pretty quickly. And I think he would have definitely raped me if he'd had half the chance, 100%.
Now, at least 43 people have been killed in Hurricane Helene as it makes its way across the southeast of the United States, leaving millions without power. Emergency crews are racing to the rescue of people trapped in flooded homes after the Category 4 hurricane struck the coast of Florida last night. And the King has led tributes for national treasure Dame Maggie Smith after she passed away yesterday at the age of 89. In a statement, the King praised her warmth and wit, while the Prime Minister remarked she was beloved by so many of her great talents. Colleagues and fans from across the world have taken to social media to share their own tributes. Just Stop Oil activists have targeted Van Gogh sunflowers paintings again. 3 climate activists targeted the artwork just an hour or so after 2 activists were jailed for a similar protest back in 2022. The National Gallery says the 2 paintings targeted yesterday were removed for examination and were found not to have any damage. And finally, it's been revealed that Boris Johnson considered raiding a Dutch warehouse over a vaccination row with the EU. At the time, the AstraZeneca vaccine was at the heart of the cross-channel row, with the former Prime Minister claiming the EU was slowing down the pace of the rollout in the UK. According to an extract from his memoir, Mr Johnson convened a meeting of senior military officials back in March of 2021 to discuss the plans, which even he admitted were, quote, nuts. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good morning to you. 11:06, Ben and Tatiana with you on Saturday Morning Live, and the big story of the day, and indeed the weekend, is Boris Johnson's serialisation of his new book, Unleashed, which is due out in a week or so. Committotomy, by the way, on this channel next Sunday, is it?
Yeah.
October the 6th, we'll have a big sit-down interview with the former Prime Minister. Amongst other things, he reckons that he considered invading Holland during the COVID pandemic, in an extract of his new memoir detailed today in the Daily Mail.
Funny you say he reckons, because we were talking earlier about, could his words just be a little bit inflated? Anyway, the former Prime Minister claims he asked senior armed forces members to devise a plan to liberate 5 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yeah, and Boris said that the doses had been kidnapped by the European Union, who he claimed were being spiteful and vengeful in the wake of Brexit, and stored in a warehouse off the coast of Holland, which was depriving millions of Brits from receiving the jabs.
Sounds a little bit like it's from a movie, doesn't it, really?
Like
well,
James Bond-esque, maybe.
It does. Joining us now for more on this is political commentator Matthew Stadlen. What do you make of this?
Well, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, some would say it's not particularly extraordinary because it's coming out of the mouth or the pen of Boris Johnson. Part of me hopes and wants to believe that this is clickbait, splashed across the front page of the Daily Mail, which is serialising his book. He's desperate to sell books, no doubt. But if he really did have these conversations, and if the Deputy Chief of the Defence Staff actually had to say to him, Prime Minister, this might be noticed, and we then have to explain why we are effectively invading a NATO ally. I mean, if these conversations really did happen, then it seems to me he was completely unfit to be Prime Minister, but then I thought he was completely unfit to be Prime Minister anyway. It's not helpful on one analysis when our current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is trying to reset relations with the EU and for us to be taken seriously as a country, for this sort of story to emerge. But there is another view.
Oh, come on. How's Boris scuppering any current-day relations with the EU?
Because he's a former Prime Minister. But I was about to say there is another view, which is that it might remind the EU and remind all of us how far we've come by no longer having Boris Johnson as Prime Minister.
Oh, right.
I'm sure you'll come back to me on that.
Yeah, amazing. Not even 100 days in government and Keir Starmer is absolutely deluged in scandal from, donors.
Is it scandal, though?
It is scandal. Because
why is it scandalous?
Because they spent, Matthew, the last 4 or 5 years calling the Tories corrupt, full of sleaze and cronyism. What do they do within the first week? They appoint swathes of politically appointed civil service appointees. Ian Caulfield in the Treasury, who gave £5,000 to Rachel Reeves. He had to step down because, of course, the appointment was an absolute joke. Other people, donors, aides who worked for the Labour Together think tank in politically neutral civil service roles. If the Tories had done that, there would be absolute uproar from Labour.
And then there has been criticism. Are you suggesting that Keir Starmer is corrupt? Because I was very careful during the Tory governments. There were allegations of corruption flying around on social media. Hang on, let me just come back to it. And I was relentless, as I'm sure you know, on social media, on television, on radio, in holding that Tory government to account. But I never made allegations of corruption, because I think if you make allegations, some people did. If you make allegations of corruption, you have to be incredibly sure of your facts.
OK, so you were very vocal during the Tory years.
Well, there were some allegations that David Cameron did a similar thing, but I don't know if...
But that's not the point. That is not the point.
So, Keir Starmer getting a bit of a harder time?
Somebody said that the Mirror released a story today saying Cameron and his wife received free clothes at the time. That's not the point. The argument isn't whether they received gifts or not, and is it morally right to receive political gifts and donations. It's the fact Labour did it after accusing the Tories of being full of sleaze, and they shouldn't have been doing it in the first place.
I think there are a couple of conversations out there. And you can absolutely make that allegation. I think there are a couple of conversations. One is, should the rules on donations, and perhaps particularly gifts, change? Because the rules are the same for everyone. And that's a perfectly reasonable, I think, conversation to have. I do also actually think it's reasonable for journalists to ask why it is that the Prime Minister, largely as leader of the opposition, took so many freebies. I think that is a reasonable conversation to have. Do I think the optics are good? No. Do I think it's highly unfortunate that this is a major distraction at a time when our country is, as I've described before, on a precipice, because we have so many issues facing all of us and all of our viewers? I think it's deeply regrettable.
Well,
but you haven't said whether he's corrupt yet.
Starmer?
Yeah.
Well, I think it is corrupt when you're taking donations and money and, you know...
Criminally corrupt?
No, don't try and back me into a corner.
I'm just asking you a question.
Of being criminal. Of course not. I think morally, I don't think politicians should be taking donations and gifts from people. No.
So that the rules should change across the board, not just for Starmer, but for everyone.
It's lobbying, and it's cash for access.
And I think that's a perfectly reasonable conversation to have.
Yeah, but the point is, you said that you were very vocal during the Tory years about this. And I've noted you've been very quiet about it online.
I haven't been quiet about it. I've said two things.
And you've also said, by the way, I'll let you finish in a second, but you've also said that it's nice to have, you didn't say this verbatim, but something similar to, it's nice to have proper politicians back in charge trying to reset relations with the EU. When you've just admitted yourself that it's regrettable what's happened with Labour. So I
didn't actually at that moment say proper politicians. I said that Starmer was trying to reset our relationship with the EU, which I think Boris Johnson did very serious damage to. We can't confine Keir Starmer to one story. I mean, I don't know how defensive or not you were of Boris Johnson. I think it's perfectly reasonable that you are asking these questions. Do I think it's a major distraction? Of course I do. And do I think that the optics are good? No, I don't. But I'm not sure that it's quite the story that journalists are building up, because don't forget, these are all declared interests. The gifts have been declared, maybe not specifically, and I think the Prime Minister's office has gone back to be more specific. That's why we're hearing about this second tranche of money for clothes, which hadn't been specifically declared for clothes. But there is a wider conversation to be had, and Starmer is by no means the only person to benefit from this.
It was also declared late, wasn't it? So, I mean...
Yes, and it seems to be, and they've gone back to try and rectify that. Look, do I want to be here talking about a story where Starmer has taken freebies? I don't think that there is any suggestion that he has broken the rules. You rightly point out that I think some declarations have been made late, but they've been rectified. I understand the point about hypocrisy, and if I were in his position, I very much hope I wouldn't have done some of the things that he's done. Does this mean that he should be sacked or stood down as Prime Minister? No. Are there very serious issues facing our country? Yes.
Yeah, he's been taking £2,500 spectacle donations from Lord Ali at the same time as stripping pensioners of their winter fuel allowance.
Those are the optics. Those are the optics, and they're not great.
Whacking 20% on private school fees, disrupting the education to thousands of people, when at the same time getting 20 grand.
Hang on, he's trying to improve state school education for 93% of children who go to state schools.
OK, all right, we're running out of time. Apologies. Matthew Statham, thank you very much for the constructive debate and conversation.
Well, moving on. We're going to go to the Middle East and the conflict there, where the Israeli Defence Force claims to have killed the Hezbollah leader, that's the terror group Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah.
Yes, and it follows Israel's targeting of Beirut overnight with a series of attacks claiming to have struck the central headquarters of Iranian-backed Hezbollah.
Israel claims that Nasrallah was the intended target, and also that initially there were reports that he was fine and had survived. However, after several hours of confusion, his death was confirmed by Israel.
Yeah, a tweet from the IDF reads the following: Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world. And there are also reports separately that Iran's supreme leader has been moved to a secure location under heightened security. I guess Tatiana over fears that he too is going to be next in the sights of the IDF.
Yes, well, joining us now for more on this is the former head of the Royal Prosecution at Scotland Yard, Di Davis. Di, thank you very much for joining us on Saturday Morning Live. These are quite extraordinary developments. What do you make of them and what do you think is coming next?
Well, good morning. I did think I was here to talk about Fayed and his breaking of rules. As for Hezbollah, I'm not quite sure I'm qualified to speak. What I would say is that Israel has a right to defend. It seems to me the world is ganging up quite often against Israel, where they have a perfect right. Nobody seems to be condemning. It reminds me of the days when I was tackling the IRA and protecting London against the provisional IRA. It seems to me that we equate terrorists with a legitimate country called Israel. And that, to me, speaking for is where we seem to be. The United Nations, frankly, in my opinion, is a joke. And I'm glad the Israeli Prime Minister spoke out as he did.
Oh, you're still there?
We seem to forget the 1,500 odd that were killed a year ago. I mean, the world is a crazy place.
Yeah, the world is a crazy place. I like that, Di. Very true indeed. Whilst you're here, do you want to talk about Al-Fayed? Swathes of new allegations emerging yesterday. The solicitors for victims saying that there's been an enormous deluge of people coming forward. Is this London's worst-kept secret? How many people knew about this alleged behaviour?
Well, once again, you're quite right. And Fayed seemed to have rules. A bit like our Prime Minister, really. He had rules. I wonder who wrote those rules. Certainly, as far as Fayed was concerned, he wrote his own rules, and others seem to follow in the wake, as it were. I'm really concerned as to now the allegations that were published yesterday in the Mirror by their chief crime reporter, alleging that over 19 victims actually went to the Metropolitan Police and actually made allegations. Didn't anyone connect this dreadful man and these incidents? So the question have to be asked of what on earth was going on, what evidence was actually put forward to the Crown prosecution, who were the investigators, and why didn't they link all these allegations? I'm merely asking, as an investigator now with half a century around the world and in this country investigating crimes, I always say if you don't investigate properly, you won't find evidence. So I'd like to know who was in charge of these investigations. Was there any influence brought to bear by the former Detective Chief Superintendent, who was head director of his security, a man called McNamara, and many others who were very close to him and were very quick to spout the nonsenses about the allegations about the conspiracy to murder Diana and his son. They were absolute nonsense, so on and so forth.
Di Davis, thank you very much for joining us on the latest on the allegations against Mohammed Al-Fayed. And of course, we're not just talking about allegations with Harrods staff. We're talking about allegations at Fulham Football Club as well, where he was the owner of. So, and we're talking about, as the lawyers representing the alleged victims have said, many more coming forward.
Yes, indeed. We're joined now by Sandy Bogle and Matthew Larzer back on the panel. Matthew, very quickly, of course, who was the head of the CPS in 2009 when one of the victims of Al-Fayed drops on the CPS's desk?
Yeah, it was
Keir
Starmer. We have no evidence that it went across his desk.
Well, number 10 say it didn't, no.
Yes,
but it went across the desk of the CPS's high-profile division, which, Al-Fayed was being scrutinised by. And I mean, can you believe that as the head of an organisation, you wouldn't know who was currently...
Yeah, actually, I had a friend who was very senior in the CPS, I mean, at the time, and there was just such a volume of cases. I think that what they didn't do then at the time is get the chief prosecutor to look at all the high-profile ones, which seems jolly sensible. I don't think that was the practice beforehand. I hope they've changed things so that ones that are going to of this magnitude do land on the desk of the chief prosecutor, who then makes the decision and can carry the responsibility.
OK.
Seems crazy why you wouldn't look into all the high-profile ones.
Yeah, I mean, if we'll have to take him at his word that unless evidence to the contrary emerges, that he never came across his desk.
Well, he also, of course, infamously was in charge when Savile was...
I think it was the same thing. I mean, effectively, because the CPS is such a big organisation, most of the time the person running it is actually running the organisation, as an organisation rather than individually prosecuting cases.
Can you not see a scenario where maybe, just from a curiosity point of view, you're at the coffee machine or having lunch...
Well, they're not allowed to discuss things at the coffee machine because there's strict protocols in play. I mean, I know what you mean,
but do you know what I mean? Like, you know, you're the boss of the organisation. Maybe just saying, oh, I wonder who's in the high-profile divisions.
Yeah, I mean, you know, perhaps. I mean, lawyers have a way of doing things where they put walls up, and you know, they're not like us. We certainly discuss things over the coffee machine here, but thankfully we're not dealing with issues of that magnitude.
OK, what stories do you fancy getting stuck into?
Should we talk about this story that actually caught both Sandy and my eyes, which is that the parents of a teenager who was stabbed to death by the youngest killers since the Bulger case has been speaking out because the two guys responsible got sentences yesterday, but they were only given a minimum of 8.5 years, and because they're so young, they potentially are going to be out in their 20s. So she has said, his mum, Mashoni Sajal, said, yeah, I'm not happy. All the children in the UK will see that they only get 8 years and they will do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean... 8 years? Is it 18 years?
Is that justice?
That's not justice. I mean, it's 8 years, 8.5 years?
Yeah, so they got life sentences, but really 8.5 years is the recommendation, yeah.
This is why we're having problems. I believe this is why we are having problems, because the sentencing or the crimes that they are doing, the sentences are not strict enough. To me personally, I think if you're taking a knife out with you, carrying whatever it is out with you, onto the streets, even thinking about before you leave the house to put it in your pocket, to walk out onto the streets, you're committing a crime. I believe you should be punished straight away for it. And I don't think the sentences are long enough, strong enough, or positive enough to deter them from doing what they're doing. This is why it's recurring. And then you go into prison and it's like fun day. I don't mean to be funny, I keep it 100 as I do. It's not right.
And they're only 13 now, and apparently the time they've already spent in secure accommodation...
They've already near enough.
Already counts.
It already counts,
they could actually... I mean, I suppose technically they could be out in their teens.
Another interesting question that's been going around regarding this. Do you think parents should be held accountable for crimes that their young ones commit, even at such a young age?
Look, you can say... We can say... I always say, yeah, it takes a community to build a child. Yeah, it takes a village, it takes a community to build a child, yeah? At the same time, you can't keep an eye on your child every single second of the day. But at the same time, you know you can't tell me you don't know that your child is unruly. I don't care. If your child is answering you back, disrespecting you in your house, your child is being rude, which means your child is capable of doing something which you do not like. So you can pull your child up from the very beginning. Don't forget, children have brains of sponges. It's education. It's all to do with educating from they're very young. Once you lose that, then it's a biting point. And then it's put onto the schools, the colleges, that kind of system to kind of like be responsible. So yes, we are responsible. Parents are responsible. Teachers are responsible. The community is responsible. We need more role models. It's not always about these big stripping, whatever, music videos saying that you can get rich.
Yeah.
It all adds up to influences. It's all to do with this. It's all to do with the same thing, and thinking that you're big and almighty, and you're not.
Good point.
So, yeah.
Good points.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Matthew. Sorry to cut you short. Short and sweet.
Sorry about that.
For your expertise today and your attention.
A pleasure. Always lovely to be with you.
Yeah.
Up next, Steph Tetchy, Showbiz juggernaut, as I call her, will be here with all the latest Showbiz news, including, as I keep saying, because I love it, I'm absolutely here for it, Philip Schofield's big comeback on Monday night. See you in 3 minutes.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week, Free Speech Brighton, a sister group of the Free Speech Union, claimed that they were kicked out of a pub in the city for discussing trans issues in schools. The group booked a room in a pub for an evening of speeches and discussion, when they claimed security guards came and asked them to leave after one speaker began to talk about this topic. Now, a clip of the evening was, in fact, posted to social media. Can you give us some background to what happened, what the event was for, and why you booked it?
Our normal pub was being refurbished, so about 3 weeks ago I went in and booked a local pub for a meeting, and they didn't ask any questions about what sort of meeting. It was in a back room. It was mainly secluded from the rest of the pub, so I thought it would be fine. But anyway, they didn't ask any questions. They took my booking. We arrived, I set up. The first speaker started speaking, who's a retired teacher who was concerned about trans in schools and how that affects children. But she was talking purely about children. She was not talking about adults who have protected characteristics, obviously. And then towards the end of her speech, I became aware of security guards standing behind me in the middle room. So I went to have a quick word with them and see what they wanted. And they said, we've had a complaint. And I said, what's the complaint? And they wouldn't say. Then they said, will you come and talk to the landlord? So I went to the front of the bar and they indicated this chap was the landlord, but he looked about 20, so I don't think he was the landlord. So I said, I hear you have a complaint about us. Can you tell me what it is? And he couldn't.
That sounds very Kafkaesque, as though you've committed a crime, but they can't tell you what the crime
is. That's what I couldn't understand, because, you know, you might... Obviously, they can't tell you who the complainant is, but they should be able to tell you what the complaint is.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I love that little glitch there, where you kind of see yourself through the ident.
It's like a little teaser, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, welcome back, and don't forget to send us your views on all of the topics that we've been discussing. And I think you've seen some of the emails, and they're quite loving the jingles, and they're saying their favourites are the McDonald's, I think.
Yeah, lots of you, I'm not sure McDonald's, lots from sort of back in the day, well before our time at least. And unfortunately, my laptop's died, so I can't get hold of them. But you are absolutely loving it on gbnews.com/your say. Bisto was one. Not quite a jingle, but remember, Bisto. Remember that?
I feel like a jingle has to be more of a musical thing, whereas that's more like a slogan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, got it. The Milky Bar Kid, catchy jingles. Someone said just a few earworm jingles to stick with you for the rest of the day. Oh, also glass repair, also glass replace.
And Toys R Us.
Yeah. There's a magical place, we're on our way there, with toys in the millions, all under one roof.
Toys R Us. Available every day. Well, yes. Well, that little voice that you just heard is Stephanie Tetchy, our
Showbiz juggernaut.
Juggernaut.
To take us through the dose of the showbiz news this week. And we're going to start with a sad bit of news this week that happened just yesterday, aren't we, Steph?
Dame Maggie Smith, her sons came out yesterday in a statement and said that she passed away peacefully at Westminster and Chelsea Hospital. She is one of the titans. She was one of the titans of the acting industry. 8 decades career, like the stats are impressive. 63 films, 78 stage roles and 88 television appearances. That was the magnitude of Dame Maggie Smith's acting career. She was one of those actors who had the ability to make any viewer who's watching her pay attention to her and intently, because sometimes it will be the words or the witty lines she would say, but also she was one of those actors as well. She wouldn't need to say anything, and her body language was just so impressive, and she just captures so many generations through both young and old. This is a woman who has been in the acting game since the 1950s, but then she enjoyed a re-insurgence when she got onto Downton Abbey, Sister Act, all those incredible things. The Prime Minister has paid tribute, His Majesty has paid tribute and said that she is actually a national treasure. And I know that term gets used loosely quite a bit, but she actually was, yeah.
Didn't the Harry Potter star, Daniel Radcliffe, also paid tribute, didn't he?
Yeah.
Something quite, it said something lovely about it, but interesting as well.
Yeah, because she was in all 8 films, a sharp tongue, both on screen and off screen. And, you know, she was in all 8 movies. So for them, they've also grown up with her. And to be working, like, aside a legend like that is something you would not forget in your career. And even though she's gone, she will never be off our screens.
We're squeezed for time, but can we get stuck into Philip Schofield?
Oh, my gosh. Philip Schofield is going to be back on our screens after a 16-month exile. He's going to be in Philip Schofield Castaway next week, a 3-part episode on Channel 5. It's going to be him stranded off a coast of Madagascar in Africa, and he's going to have to fend for himself for 10 days. Obviously, we know he's had this scandal where he had to quit his job at This Morning, so very much this is going to be a personal redemptive case, I personally feel, for Philip Schofield, where he's going to be talking about life since the scandal and what's next for him. He says he will never go back to ITV, so that's why he's on Channel 5.
Well, really?
Yeah.
Go back to ITV? Oh,
I'm sure if the price was right, he would.
There's a breaking news story. Who'd have thought? Schofield never going back to ITV?
Yeah.
He talks about, he suggests Holly Willoughby, his long-time on-air partner, threw
him under the bus.
And also, I guess, very sadly, he suggests that, said that he was readying himself to take his own life.
Yeah, because can you imagine at that time, when it happened, he was the most man that was on front of the newspapers, his career had gone out the drain, and for him, Holly was like his best friend, so I'm sure we're going to hear more about this in the show.
And that starts Monday, correct?
Monday till Wednesday.
Right.
Tune in, Ben.
I will. I'll be there. For me, it was one of the biggest stories last year.
It was.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you, guys.
Lewis Mackenzie is on standby with all your news headlines.
Good morning. It's just after 11:30. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. The Israeli military say they have killed the commander of Hezbollah in strikes in southern Lebanon last night. In a tweet, the IDF claimed that Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world, saying he was killed in these strikes. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that at least 6 people have been killed and 91 wounded in attacks in central Beirut. On your screens now are live pictures of where that missile attack happened early last night. Soldiers and aid workers are currently taking part in the rescue operations, looking for survivors and victims in the rubble. Reuters news agency are also now reporting that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, has been transferred to a secure location inside his country with heightened security measures in place. At least 43 people have been killed in Hurricane Helene as it makes its way across the southern eastern parts of the United States, leaving millions without power. Emergency crews are racing to the rescue of people trapped in flooded homes after the Category 4 hurricane struck the coast of Florida last night. And as you've just been hearing in Steph's Showbiz Roundup, the King has led tributes for national treasure Dame Maggie Smith, as she passed away yesterday at the age of 89. In a statement, the King praised her warmth and wit, while the Prime Minister remarked she was beloved by so many for her great talent. Colleagues and fans from across the world have been taken to social media to share their own tributes. Just Stop Oil have targeted Van Gogh's sunflower paintings again. 3 climate activists targeted artwork just an hour after 2 other activists were jailed for a similar protest back in 2022. The National Gallery says the 2 paintings targeted yesterday were removed for examination and were found not to have any damage. And it's been revealed that Boris Johnson considered raiding a Dutch warehouse over a vaccination row with the EU. At the time, the AstraZeneca vaccine was at the heart of the cross-channel row, with the former Prime Minister claiming the EU was slowing down the pace of the rollout in the UK. According to an extract from his memoir, Mr. Johnson convened a military meeting of senior officials back in March of 2021 to discuss the plans, which even he now considers as nuts. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through today, we'll see some showers in the northwest, sunnier spells elsewhere before turning more unsettled from the west on Sunday. Looking at the bigger picture then, we've got a ridge of higher pressure extending across much of the UK. There is a frontal system across the northwest of Scotland, so here we are going to see some cloudier skies across Scotland with some outbreaks of rain and showers affecting northwestern parts of England and also parts of Northern Ireland as well. But on the whole, further towards the south, across Wales and much of England, a fine day to come with some sunny spells too. We've got lighter winds out there today, but despite that, still temperatures a little bit below average, highs of 11 in the north, up to 15 in the south. Now, as we go through this evening, cloudy conditions remain across much of Scotland, especially western areas, and across parts of Orkney, where we've got further outbreaks of rain. Temperatures will quickly fall away once again tonight. Further across Northern Ireland, again, a few showers remaining, and across northwestern England, coming down into Wales as well. But largely dry further the south you go, with some early evening sunshine as well. Now, as we go through this evening, cloud and rain persisting across parts of Scotland, but elsewhere, a largely fine, dry night to come with some clear spells as well. We've got light winds as well, and that'll help temperatures drop away. So we could still see a touch of frost tonight, but perhaps not quite as low as what we saw in the previous night. Further towards the south, though, we will see the winds increasing. It's going to be a mild start here, but a windy start with outbreaks of rain as the next area of low pressure moves through. So we have got a Met Office wind warning in force for some strong gusty winds of 50, possibly 60 miles per hour across the southwest and into parts of Wales as well. But further towards the east, a drier day with some bright sunny sunshine. Bye-bye.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. We are now delighted to be joined by comedian and my beautiful friend Francine Lewis, who's here to share with us her upcoming book, The Last Laugh, and an exciting competition in collaboration with none other than that mean Simon Cowell. Francine,
he's not so mean anymore.
Oh, is he not?
He's not. And do you know what?
Since having a child, is it maybe?
Definitely. It's really weird because I really liked Simon. He was nasty. I just found that, I don't know, quite sexy. Now he's way too nice. Way too nice.
That's what they say, isn't it? You get all the nice guys say, I never get any luck with women, and they always say I'm too nice.
Do you know what? The truth is, I've always thought Simon was lovely. He's such a nice guy. Like, when I was doing Britain's Got Talent, I was very, very excited, you know, to meet Simon again because it was the second time I'd actually met him. And I always thought he was such a charming, lovely man. So it was all the persona, isn't it? It's just he had that. But I think it is more fun watching him nasty. Go back to being nasty, Simon.
Nasty Simon Cowell. Well, Francine, it's been a while since you were in the studio here at GB News, and you've got a lot going on. You've got a new book coming out. Tell us about this book and also what you've been up to in the meantime.
Well, I am very, very excited to be able to write this book because I feel it's like a long time coming. I've been in the industry, like, I feel forever. A lot of people who saw me on Britain's Got Talent, which is a nice younger generation that I've obviously got of fans now. But I was also, like, doing so much in the late 90s, doing shows like, obviously, Generation Game with Jim, Night Fever. I was team captain with the likes of Amanda Holden, Claudia Winkleman, Davina McCall. You know, we used to have such a great kind of lineup every single week on that show. And I had my own show on Capital Radio. A lot of people don't realise the sort of stuff I'd done before. You know, and not only does it show all the great things I've done in my life and my career and how lucky I've been, but also my struggles. No one has a perfect life, and I certainly haven't. And it will all be in the book, so I'm very excited about it.
Of course, you are more recently well known for BGT and your impressions and whatnot. I have to ask, have you got any impressions up your sleeve of this current Labour government, maybe Sir Keir Starmer? Are you even working on impressions recently? Is that in your repertoire?
Well, do you know what? I do watch a lot of reality TV, a lot of that sort of stuff.
What do you watch?
I love Towie, whenever Love Island's on. Seriously, honeys, 100% definitely. You got to watch Essie. It's all about Towie. Love it, seriously. So I'm always doing, you know, whatever the new reality shows are.
Another favourite is Katie Price, and we've got a video. I think we've got a selfie video of us doing.
Have we?
Yeah, we have. From
I'm showing
years ago.
Tatiana to Katie Price, which she does amazingly. Come on, Tatiana, let's...
No, I don't.
Tatiana!
Katie, there's a mixture between Katie Price and Tatiana.
Come on, let's hear it, Tatiana.
No, I can't. You do it. You're the
wow! What can I say? I love it. What do you think? I love when people take me off. It shows what a big star I am.
It's the lick of the lips. It's that little thing.
It's essential to how her character is kind of like portrayed in the way you do her. That little lick of the lip is just genius.
It's funny because when I do an impression, I get the mannerisms first. No matter who it is, you know, like it can be Audrey from Corrie and it's like, soon as you do the face, you knew that the voice is just going to follow. It's so weird. And then, you know, even with Cheryl, it was always, I kind of like pretended, I just thought, it's so calm. She does everything with a real calm sort of look, you know. So I totally, utterly love doing her too.
She's my favourite, by the way. She's my absolute favourite. And in this book, so I want to go back to your book called The Last Laugh. You talk about your experience in the industry, and as you've shared with us, you've done a lot more than people might realise that you've done. Being in the limelight and seeing all the behind-the-scenes stuff in this crazy industry, I like to say, what can you share with us that people may not realise and understand about you?
Well, the reason why I do call it The Last Laugh is because I don't know if any of you have watched the programme Mrs Maisel, which I absolutely loved. It's an amazing series if you haven't, on Amazon Prime. And I related so much to it because it was about a female who was, I hate saying it, but glamorous, you know, who didn't, like, you know, look like a typical comedian. And I never forget my very first TV appearance when I did Sky Star Search with Keith Chegwin all those years ago. I think I was like 18 or something. And one of the judges said, you know, you're amazing, but you should be in a trouser suit, you know. And I thought to myself, no, like, this is me, this is my image, and I don't want to change that. And I think years ago, comedians did have a persona of looking a certain way, you know, our typical Joe Brands and, you know, people like that. And I think...
Men with scruffy hair and glasses.
Exactly. You have to look funny to be funny. But, you know, I just feel like, no, I wanted to be me. And every TV show I did, I had the stylist trying to style me in a certain way. Yeah. But I had my own image and my own style. I mean, I look very smart today. But, you know, generally, I like to look like, you know, a little bit of a little dolly kind of look, you know, so I like a little dress and cutesy look.
We're fast running out of time, unfortunately, but just tell us about this competition with the show.
Right, really excited, because I'm working again with Simon Cowell. We're both collaborating on a brand new streaming channel called Lounges. I'm looking for the next comedic impressionist. I will be mentoring them, and what the amazing thing is, the prize will be that they go straight to the auditions in front of the famous judges and gets to be on
Britain's Got Talent.
On Britain's Got Talent, and I will be mentoring.
Amazing. And where can people find out more if they want to enter?
All they have to do is go to the Lounges app and you can enter the competition. Please do, because impressions are so hard to come by. We are a bit of a niche, you know, we are quite unique, and it's always hard, I know, for Britain's Got Talent every year to find impressionists. So come on, guys, get on this app and let's get you in front of those judges. It'll be amazing.
Well done, Francine. I'm so proud of you for everything that you're doing. And you're an author, you've already got a children's book out.
Yes.
And, and you're doing amazing. And I will be reading that book.
Thank you.
And Last Laugh is out now?
It's going to be out at the end of October.
Great, good stuff. Francine Lewis, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Mwah.
Still to come, we'll be joined in the studio by businesswoman and former X Factor contestant Gemma Burke. See you in just a tick.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I've got a question for you here, Mr. Motivator. Each time I will try and do a couch to 5K, and I start, and then it stops, and then I'll have another go. It's baby steps, though, for most of us, isn't it? You've got to start slow, because I also see people go out and run, do that, and then do too much, and they get completely exhausted and think, I can't do this anymore. So what is it? You have to start slowly, right? Is that fair?
Well, with everything that you do need to start slowly. But what's more important than that? You need to identify an activity that suits you. Now, the thing is, you may want to do couch to 5K, but let's say you have a preponderance for swimming. Maybe swimming is what you really like, or dancing is what you like. You find the activity that suits you. And I have to say, you'll never see a happy jogger. They're happy afterwards. They have enjoyed the experience, but they're never happy whilst doing it. But you must start with everything.
Have you ever been out of shape, though? Because whilst I find you really inspiring, I feel as though you've always been in good nick, and therefore it's kind of come easy to you. Whereas I think, you know, there are plenty of people who have a tendency to put on weight. I mean, I can look at chocolate and I feel like I put on weight. You know, and it's a slog, especially if you've taken your foot off the gas for a while. Getting back into it's brutal. What do you know about that?
Well, let me just say this to you, that in the early days, and I can go back, don't forget, 71 years, our activity level was much higher. But this is something that's really just happened in the last 30 years. So those 30 years, we have changed. We now spend more time in front of the computer. We spend more time sitting down. So that's why we need gyms, and we need to get up. Now, gyms don't suit everybody. And that's why I do free classes. Free club, you can join. Everyone can get access to movement in their home. But you have got to make that first step.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, 11:49. Ben and Tatiana with you on Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News. And this past Thursday was the day that the most babies were born in the UK.
Wow.
Apparently. I think because people were quite frisky, should we say, over Christmas and New Year, perhaps. And I just have to say, my wife just texted me and said, my own baby, my 18-month-old Zach, says, Zach doesn't understand you can't talk back through the TV. He's trying to talk to you. He's showing his toys to the TV. So I have to say, hello, Zach. Love you very much.
Hi, Zach.
Oh,
Hello.
Our next guest is 9 months pregnant and is here to explain why and share her story on why hydration has been a key part of her pregnancy.
Well, welcome to Gemma Berg. Hi, Gemma.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing? How far along are we now?
Yes, so I'm
9
months. Yeah, 35, just gone 35 weeks, 36 weeks on Wednesday. So
wow,
we're reaching the end.
How are we feeling?
Slowing down. I'm finding it really hard to slow down. That's the hardest part of it, you know, not doing everything that I want to do or used to doing and being on the go all the time. But yeah,
you still are.
Yeah, I
You're
still am.
businesswoman on the go.
Yeah.
And you're talking about hydration. We've got here, haven't we? We've got a little can of something called True Sport Hydration that you've brought in for us today.
Yes.
This packaging does actually look quite nice. It's yummy.
Yes.
Tell us more about this and your kind of journey.
Yeah, so I originally got into... everyone's like, how did you get into hydration? So I run a lovely boutique spa in Northamptonshire. And one of these products, so we have 3 brands. So there's True Sports, True Hydration and Natural Glow. So Natural Glow is the way that I kind of came into this. We sold them originally mainly through spas and salons, and then adopted this brand as well. And
refreshing, actually.
It's
very
nice,
refreshing.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's light.
So this one's still. The other 2 brands are sparkling, actually, which is nice to mix it up. So yeah, so I got into it through my other business. And then had the opportunity to put that aside a little bit and have other people run it and really help out with building this brand.
So it might seem like a silly question and an obvious question, actually, but why is hydration so important for mothers in pregnancy?
So, I mean, we lose a lot of our goodness to our baby, which obviously is fine, but we need to find and get it back through other sources. Now, that doesn't mean then drinking an extra litre of water a day, because going to the toilet is happens quite a lot through pregnancy. So if you then add more water, it's not necessarily going to hydrate you, and it's just going to go around your body and out into the toilet. So it's not just about hydrating yourselves, it's about optimal hydration. So making sure the hydration that you put into your body is optimal, so our water goes into your cells. We actually don't call it water, we call it hydration, because it's completely different.
Yeah, because hydration, I play a lot of sport, hydration isn't just water, is it? It's electrolytes, it's minerals and salts. You can drink a lot of water and still be, I find, hydrated, especially after, say, I don't know, a sauna, where you lose a lot of salts and electrolytes.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to think about is if you're drinking so much water, it can actually have a negative effect. So it passes through your body and it can take your actual electrolytes out of your system if you're drinking too much water. Now, what the aim of the game is with hydration is finding a hydration that has the perfect osmolality. Now, what that means, it hasn't got all of the other chemicals that you find in even bottled water. And then if you can get the perfect osmolality, which again, like I say, is really hard to find, if you can get it, it will work in the cells. So what that means is, and I don't want to get too technical because I don't want to scare people off it, but at the same time, you know, it has to work intracellular. If you can find the osmolality that is perfect and works intracellular, then all the other goodness that's in the drink, like the electrolytes, will also go intracellular.
And also, is sport good for pregnancy?
Yeah, so I've tried my hardest.
Not intense sport, though.
Yeah, you have to be careful. But as long as you're keeping active, being active is actually really good for you, across the board, of course.
And what do you do to keep active during your pregnancy?
So,
long walks?
I do a lot of walking. I was very heavily into running. I ran some marathons before I was pregnant, and I did have to slow that down slightly, again, which I said was one of the hardest things for me. I was doing weights, and, you know, it's just keeping active is really, really important. So, yeah, just be very careful and not lift too heavy towards the end of your pregnancy.
Yeah, I've always wondered whether your current level of fitness when you conceive, both as the mother and the father, whether that
makes
passes on to the baby, having sort of some natural athleticism.
I think so. I think that there must... I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I wouldn't want to give the answer.
No,
Someone probably watching and going, shut up, she don't have a clue. But there's got to be something. There's got to be something in it.
Great.
Trying to claim that for yourself.
Yeah, my son is going to be a runner.
Yeah, he's going to play tennis.
I go in peaks and troughs. Some years I'm super fit, other years I'm well off the wagon, but yeah, we'll see.
I'm the same.
Well, well done, and this is delicious, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Gemma. Appreciate you being with us, and thank you at home for being with us this morning. Dawn Neeson is up next, and we're back same time next week.
Yes, we are. See you then.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar.
sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through today, we'll see some showers in the northwest, sunnier spells elsewhere before turning more unsettled from the west on Sunday. Looking at the bigger picture then, we've got a ridge of higher pressure extending across much of the UK. There is a frontal system across the northwest of Scotland, so here we are going to see some cloudier skies across Scotland with some outbreaks of rain and showers affecting northwestern parts of England and also parts of Northern Ireland as well. But on the whole, further towards the south, across Wales and much of England, a fine day to come with some sunny spells too. We've got lighter winds out there today, but despite that, still temperatures a little bit below average, highs of 11 in the north, up to 15 in the south. Now, as we go through this evening, cloudy conditions remain across much of Scotland, especially western areas,